His world of aviation taught him that when you have high stakes, when the margin for error is small, preparation isn't optional, it's mandatory. And the grace with which he handled that complexity, while still keeping his sense of humor, humility, and calm, is one of the greatest lessons I carry with me. Today, I want to pay tribute to him, but also to bring you into his mindset and to show how that mindset matters hugely in physician practices and medical group operations. Because the same principles of preparation, structure, branching logic, and options that keep an aircraft safe on takeoff, cruise, and landing also keep a medical practice thriving, resilient, and mission-aligned. Welcome to Medical Money Matters, the podcast where you can find experts, answers, and resources so that you can achieve mastery over the financial and business aspects of your practice. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Jill Arena. I began my career in accounting and finance, and I have more than 30 years of experience running medical groups. I own and operate a national healthcare consulting and revenue cycle company, and I am the author of Physician Heal Life Financial Self. In 2020, I co-founded the Physician Leadership Project, and in 2025, I released Physician's Edge, the first of its kind online business education for physicians. My passion is to increase financial and business literacy for physicians. Episode 154, a tribute to my dad and his love of options flowcharts. Why physician practices need options and strategy. I still remember the first time my dad explained his pre-flight checklist. He shared some of the items with me. Instruments check. Fuel quantity check. Weather briefing confirmed. Exterior visual check. Alternate airport identified. It felt almost ceremonial, methodical, purposeful, adding some calm into the midst of what could have been pre-flight chaos. To many people, that might have seemed like just one more routine before taking off, but I understood something deeper. I saw a man who believed that being prepared wasn't just a good idea, it was the only way to live and lead. My dad started flying in the Air Force and then shifted into work in the commercial space, flying for Western and Delta Airlines over many years and many hundreds of safe flights without ever having an incident. He lived his life by checklists, by flowcharts, by if-then logic. If the weather changed, then we divert. If engine warning light comes on, then that protocol applies. If communication fails, then alternate channel engaged. His world of aviation taught him that when you have high stakes, when the margin for error is small, preparation isn't optional, it's mandatory. And the grace with which he handled that complexity, while still keeping his sense of humor, humility, and calm, is one of the greatest lessons I carry with me. Today, I want to pay tribute to him, but also to bring you into his mindset and to show how that mindset matters hugely in physician practices and medical group operations. Because the same principles of preparation, structure, branching logic, and options that keep an aircraft safe on takeoff, cruise, and landing also keep a medical practice thriving, resilient, and mission-aligned. Let's begin by looking at a key piece of work in healthcare that connects directly to this mindset. The Checklist Manifesto, How to Get Things Right, by Atul Gawande. In that book, Gawande explores how even the most expert professionals, surgeons, pilots, builders, can make avoidable mistakes, not because they lack knowledge, but because the scale and complexity of their work exceed individual memory, planning, and coordination. He shows us that checklists aren't about bureaucracy or lack of intelligence. They are about humility, teamwork, structure, and reducing the chance that a critical step is overlooked. In his words, under conditions of complexity, there must always be room for judgment, but judgment aided and even enhanced by procedure. So when I think of my dad with his checklists and flowcharts, I'm reminded that he understood the value of preparation, not just mechanically, but mentally. He was doing much more than following steps. He was embedding a mindset of clarity, options, and readiness. And since he always appreciated a good pun, as a pilot, he would say that the use of a good checklist would keep you from just winging it. And that brings us to the core of this conversation: why physician practices need options, need strategy, need flowcharts of decision logic, just as much as the cockpit needs pre-flight checklists. Because in healthcare, the stakes are high, the variables many, and the decisions complex. Whether you are a physician leader, a practice manager, or an administrator, you face branching decisions every day: staffing, growth, technology adoption, reimbursement changes, regulatory shifts, competitive threats, mission alignment. Too often, people fall into the trap of what's the single best answer, rather than what are my options, what contingencies can I build, what flow of decisions am I prepared for. My dad's love of options flowcharts was more than an organizational quirk. It was his way of thinking. If this happens, then that will follow. If that happens, then we'll do this. He would map out the possibilities, he'd ask what if, and he'd build structure so that in the moment of decision or crisis, he wasn't starting from scratch. Let's bring this into the physician practice context. Imagine you're deciding whether to expand to a new clinic location. Sit with me for a minute and let's draw out the branching logic. If we expand to a new site within 12 months, then we must hire 2 physicians, secure ancillary staff, invest in equipment, negotiate payer contracts, and integrate our EMR. But if we expand and volume grows slower than forecasted, then we must plan for contingency, cross-cover staffing, renegotiate leasing, scale back hours. If we don't expand, then we retain the risk of growth stagnation. Maybe the competition takes the local market, maybe recruitment becomes harder. So the decision is not simply expand or don't, it is expand now with safeguards versus defer expansion with alternate uses of capital versus alternative growth path like telehealth, partnerships, or merger. A flowchart helps you bring those alternatives into view, and a branching logic, if-then statements, help you see the impact of each choice. In the realm of strategy, this is so much stronger than hoping you'll pick the one best path and everything will go well. Because as the complexity in the modern medical environment shows us, from reimbursement shifts to workforce shortages to regulatory change, the best laid plans often get disrupted. That's why much of strategic planning is less about picking the perfect path and more about choosing a path with options, built-in pivot points, and contingency logic. Let's pull that apart further. Many physician practices fall prey to the myth of the one best way, the idea that there is a single right answer. If we just hire X number of physicians, or adopt Y new EMR, or merge with Z partner, life will settle into perfect growth. The reality is messier. Strategy in practice management is not about perfection. It's about resilience, readiness, clarity of decision points, and having a structure to navigate uncertainty. You're listening to Medical Money Matters, a weekly podcast brought to you by Healthy Practices, a healthcare consulting and revenue cycle company dedicated to keeping our clients independent. Please reach out if we can do anything at all to support your practice. You can find more information online at healtheps.com. That's www.healtheps.com. Please follow or subscribe to get all future episodes downloaded as soon as they're released. That's where building out option sets and capturing them visually becomes invaluable. Think of developing a decision tree. For example, if we adopt a new telehealth platform within 6 months, then we project revenue increase of X, but also initial investment cost, training time, potential drop in office volume by Y. If that happens, then we must cross-train current staff, adjust scheduling, communicate with patients, engage payers. If telehealth volume declines instead of increasing, then the backup plan is to revert to shared resources, maybe shift to hybrid model, evaluate the return on investment at 12 months, and redeploy capital elsewhere if needed. If staffing shortages persist, then maybe we delay rollout, or we partner with an external vendor. The branching flowchart helps leaders visualize not just the path of expansion, but the path of fallback, the path of decision-making under uncertainty. My dad's flowcharts were never rigid. They were guides for thinking ahead, not scripts for automatic action. And that's important. The flowchart is not meant to remove judgment, it's meant to enhance it. It gives structure to high-stakes decisions so that when you're under pressure, you don't freeze, you don't guess, you don't rely purely on improvisation. You have anticipated possibilities, you have options, and you have clarity. In physician leadership, branching logic matters in mission-critical decisions. Think about this. If our lead physician retires in 18 months, then do we have a succession plan? Do we cross-train an emerging partner? Do we recruit externally now? If recruitment fails, then do we outsource part of the service line, merge with a regionally aligned group, or transform the care model to reduce reliance on that single physician? If reimbursement changes reduce margins by 15% next year, then do we pivot to alternative revenue streams like telehealth, value-based care contracts, retail options, ancillary expansion? Or do we reduce overhead, consolidate locations, and renegotiate leases? Each of these are if-then statements. Each maps into a decision tree. And when you embed these into your leadership culture, you elevate your practice's ability to respond, pivot, and lead rather than reacting. Another point, flowcharts are not just for operations, they are for discernment. When you build branching logic into decisions, you force clarity around values, mission, and trade-offs. For example, if we prioritize patient access above all else, then we may invest in extended hours and telehealth, but that might increase staffing costs. If we prioritize physician work-life balance, then we may limit expansion or outsource more services, then the trade-off may be slower growth. And the flowchart forces you to ask, what kind of practice are we? What trade-offs are we willing to make? What options do we want on the table? It brings mission and values into decision logic, not just KPIs and operations. One of the strengths of visual decision support tools like flowcharts is that they help teams align. Too often in practice management, the physician leaders, the administrative staff, and the operations team all have different mental models of what is happening or what the plan is. By laying out a flowchart, if this happens, then this, if not, then that, you create shared language. Everyone sees the branching logic, the contingency path, and the trigger points. That means better communication, better alignment, faster, and more intentional execution. At Healthy Practices, we work with medical groups on exactly this, building decision trees for major strategic decisions like growth, staffing, mergers, or technology adoption. We don't do it for the sake of diagrams alone. We do it because leadership teams need to anticipate options, evaluate trade-offs, communicate clearly, and align missions. When you do that, decisions become less reactive and more proactive. You stop being caught off guard by external change, and instead, you steer your organization with clarity. Let me give one more illustrative example. Suppose your group is considering partnering with a hospital or health system. The decision tree might look like this. If we partner now, then we gain access to shared infrastructure, referral flow, and capital. But we may lose some autonomy, face cultural integration challenges, and potential margin compression. If partnership fails, then do we retain practice independence with higher margin but slower growth? Do we look instead for joint venture models rather than full acquisition? Do we invest in building our own ancillary services instead of partnering? By mapping out the options ahead of time, you can ask, what are our trigger points? At what point do we pull the partnership plug? What are our exit criteria? What are the early warning signs? That's the power of flowcharts and branching logic. They turn fuzzy what-ifs into mapped decision pathways. Returning to my dad for a moment, I want to reflect on his legacy. He never flew an aircraft that didn't have a backup plan. He never started a journey without considering the alternate route, the weather shift, the engine fault, the human factor. He taught me that people don't just need checklists, they need options, clarity, structure, and the ability to pivot. For physician practices, the world is changing rapidly. Workforce demographics, reimbursement models, technology, value-based care. The practices that will thrive are those that don't just have a plan, they have multiple options, they have branching logic, and they have decision maps. And when things get uncertain, they don't scramble, they respond. So here's an invitation to you. If you're leading a physician practice or part of a medical group, pick the next major decision on your agenda. Maybe it's next year's growth plan, maybe it's your technology roadmap, maybe it's staffing or succession. Now map it. Draw out. If we do this, then that. If we don't, then something else. What are the trigger points for you? What are the fallback options? What investments must we make to keep our options open? Which paths align with our mission, values, and financial realities? Then share that map with your leadership team, your physicians, your administrative staff, and make the flow visible, not just the destination. Finally, when I reflect on my dad's checklist, his calm before he took off, I remember that in healthcare, the plane that you're flying might be a practice full of patients, a medical group full of physicians, a future full of unknowns. Your pre-flight isn't just a checklist, it's a map of decision pathways. And your job as leader is not just to follow steps, it's to anticipate the skies, see the possibilities, plan for turbulence, and lead your team through it with clarity. Thank you for spending this time with me. If you found value in this reflection, if it sparked something for you, please consider sharing this episode, subscribing, and visiting Healthy Practices for more tools, templates, and insights on strategy, operations, and finance for medical groups. And I'd love to hear from you. What are the major decision trees you're working on? What if-then statements keep you up at night? Drop a comment, send a message. Let's continue the conversation. Here's to the legacy of those who taught us to prepare, to anticipate, and to lead with clarity. Thanks, Dad. Here's to flying with a plan and knowing where we'll go if the skies shift. Until next time. You can find more information online at medicalmoneymatterspodcast.com, and you can sign up to be notified when enrollment opens for the Medical Money Matters e-learning program for a mini MBA physician style, which will carry CME credits and will be released in upcoming months. In that, we'll do an even deeper dive so you can understand dynamic budgeting strategies, cash flow forecasting, and other more esoteric financial concepts. We've included those links in the show notes. As I like to close out these podcasts, congratulations on taking the next step in your professional development and for making the commitment to learn about the financial and business aspects of your practice. I look forward to being on this journey with you and send you my heartfelt gratitude for all that you do for your patients all day, every day.